I get those goosebumps every time. I need the Heimlich, throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time.
So, Rabia, just to get everybody on the same page here, can you explain what it is we're talking about when we talk about safe spaces?
For one group who is marginalized, who is oppressed, to ask for one room on campus just to organize, just to have that as kind of a safe space away from any sort of oppression or trigger. I don't think that would be too much to ask for.
We're teaching them to have a very thin skin. We should be teaching people to have a thick skin. I mean, it's a tough world out there. And to be productive members of society and to fight for a better world, we need to have a thick skin. And it's really regressive, I think, these policies are.
So I guess, do you think that's a fair assessment? You know, do you think what Dan's saying is a fair assessment? Is there a way to combat that?
So again, a lot of people come from very different walks of life and experience very, very different things, right? You can't expect somebody to have a thick skin because that's how society works, right? You can't expect that. There are people who emotionally can't, physically can't, they just can't do it. And to expect them because that's how society works, you should not be blaming that person for not being able to do that. Maybe it's another look on society.
So you're saying they're immature, is what you're saying. They're too immature, is what you're saying.
You cannot equate that to immaturity, though.
Well, it's emotional immaturity.
Well, let's
See, that's the thing. You can't tell people what safe space they do and do not need. That's on their own self to ask if they need a safe space.
Well, you're right. We've created a society where people need safe spaces, and you're absolutely right. And I think that we need to reverse these steps. So I think the first step is we should restructure these safe spaces so people still have an opportunity to speak about their issues. I think that's important. I think we should restructure these safe spaces into student groups so the potential for abuse is removed. The potential for abuse of segregation is removed. We can't be segregating students with public funds.
What is potential for abuse? What are you
The potential for abuse is at a safe space. You know, you have the two white kids in the event, the Racialized Students Collective, getting kicked out. See, I don't find that acceptable. And as a VP Equity, you should be, you know, totally outraged by that.
Not really, because if it's talking about, can you please not make noises back there? Anyway, so if you are talking about issues that racialized students face, right? If I am talking in a classroom, there's going to be white people, black people, everybody around, and they can listen, right? If I want to talk specific issues that racialized students face, I do not think that white people need to be in that space.
But basically what I was saying is, like, objectively, I really don't care if a white girl has dreads. I really don't. That's not the issue that I have. It's not, you know, it's not even that. It's more of, in the current society that we live in, when black people are punished for having these hairstyles and you get away with having it, then that's kind of, you know, so I personally, like, when I see a white person with dreads, I have a very hard time believing that they're on my side. Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like even if you could have every justification in the world, the fact that a black person can't exist with this hairstyle without facing a bunch of crap for it, I think someone who's an ally would see that, respect that, and be like, hey, guess what? I'm not going to do that with my hair. I'm not going to do that with my hair. I'm going to walk away from it, whatever.
Well, guys, today I'm here to talk to you about a different type of privilege. Can you guess which one it is? White privilege. White privilege is basically the privilege to be blissfully ignorant of the racial plights of in this case, black people. White people don't have to worry about being eyed and stared at in stores and banks, you know, afraid that people are going to think that they're about to stick up the place or take something out of the store. Being judged by their name on a resume, having their intelligence judged unfairly just because their name may be Shaniqua, Kwavanzane, whatever.
What the fuck?
Most people that have guns don't use them on other people. You said if you have a gun, you're going to use it.
Well,
you don't.
What's that old saying? If you have a gun, you better be able to use it?
Yes. Most people are overwhelmingly good.
Okay, yeah, well, but most people have a gun. 350 million Americans, there are 310 million guns.
Right, that doesn't mean that most people have a gun. It doesn't distribute exactly that way.
But, you know, people are blaming violence in movies and videos
well, that's
on
insane.
this.
That's insane.
No, really?
Shut the fuck up!
No, what is it called? Art of War, Man of War? What are the kids play with
Call of
Duty? We don't
Duty.
allow that in our house. Really? So busy buying Call of Duty. There needs to be more hugs in households.
Those aren't mutually exclusive.
Well,
nothing in Call of Duty says you can't hug your family.
Well, you know what?
Nothing
This boy's favorite game pen was Call of Duty.
Yes, and many peaceful people. You're doing the same thing. Call of Duty is the most popular game there is. Everyone's playing it, so of course bad people are going to play it too.
Yeah.
To try to blame Shakespeare and the violence in Shakespeare and the violence in art for violence that happens in the real world is something that's been tried for years and is always wrong. People must take responsibility. We must stop blaming society and actually blame the perpetrator.
Yeah, you know what?
Call of Duty is something that young people like and enjoy, and it's a game.
I think
and most of those people aren't violent. Most of the people aren't violent.
We need to take responsibility for our own houses.
And we have to stop disliking our children. We attack comic books. We attack monster movies. Now we're attacking video games. Love our children and know that they can play.
Take care of your household.
Let them play.
Jamie Foxx is one of the only celebrities
that Jamie Foxx is wrong.
Well, he says we cannot turn our backs and say that violence in films or anything that we do doesn't have some sort of influence. It does. I go along with that.
Blame the killers. Why not blame the killers?
Well, some of the killers learn their killing through movies.
Blame the killers, not the artists. Why are you blaming artists for something that bad people did? And Shakespeare is not a bad person. He wrote beautiful stuff. It has suicide, it has murder, and it tells us something about our hearts. And people who watch Shakespeare don't kill. And Call of Duty is art. It is not some sort of propaganda thing. And that's an easy way out.
How about this? This is a case of violence with guns, video games, and mental health. Now, here's a kid who was borderline autistic with Asperger's. They have a lot of social problems.
But they have no violent problems.
No. Autistic kids are usually victims. My point is that if you sit this kid in a room all day shooting people, if they have no social skills...
How do you know that?
Because it's been... Well, it's been reported.
It's been reported.
There's no evidence that Asperger's syndrome people go violent from playing games.
This is not about Asperger's.
You have not one data point of evidence on that.
I'm not saying that.
Well, you just said it.
Well, let me try to be clearer.
Please.
Here's a person who has troubles figuring out what's social and what's not. And he's inundated with shoot. And then a little plan comes across, well, maybe I'll just go to school and shoot people.
No, you've just done cause and effect where it doesn't exist.
There's no guilt. There's no guilt. There's no conscience.
That's not true that there's no guilt and no conscience.
He wouldn't make eye contact with his barber.
Please don't tear those people apart. I have good friends with Asperger's. They have conscience. They have empathy. All of that is not true. You're spreading lies about people who are part of our society and who we need to love and take care of and share.
Let's talk about Harvard this morning, shall we? Because a liberal student there, Sandra Cohn, has penned a piece which is raising the eyebrows of a number of individuals this morning. She had written a piece around the idea that we should get rid of academic freedom in favor of academic justice. She is sick and tired there at Harvard of dealing with research that comes out, which may counteract her own viewpoints of life. She can't stand when academic research comes out that doesn't support her liberal ideology.
Yeah, she's a senior there, and the title of this piece is "The Doctrine of Academic Freedom. Let's give up on academic freedom in favor of justice." She's a women's studies and gender equality and that type of advocate as well. Well, if our university community opposes racism, here's what she says: sexism and heterosexism, why should we put up with research that counters our goals simply in the name of academic freedom? Instead, I would like to propose a more rigorous standard, one of academic justice. When an academic community observes research promoting or justifying oppression, it should ensure that this research does not continue.
In other words, the truth, when it's inconvenient, should be squelched. There's a name for this. It's called fascism. And what's amazing is this girl is a senior. As you just said, this is the fruit of a Harvard education. After 4 years at Harvard, you conclude, or she has, that the truth, when inconvenient, ought to be suppressed. If she had absolute power, how many people would die? Many.
Well, what's interesting is that one of the pieces is she talks about specifically with some research that came out of the university from one professor around rape and how women, this professor said, they should be more modest and that would stem rape. stop rape because women need to be a little bit more modest. She took umbrage with that, as I think many people would, that it was somehow a woman's fault to be raped. And she said we should rally. Students should rally and make sure that this professor never gets published at this university again. What's wrong with rallying? That's what a university system does, right? A free throw of ideas.
Right, so women who wear sexy lingerie or wear a short skirt deserve to have sex taken from them, stolen from them. Doesn't make any sense. But I will say one thing. The way that she opens this piece is about a Harvard professor back in the 1970s who writes a piece called IQ. He gets a lot of backlash for it because he says that IQ is based on hereditary almost entirely, and it varies by race in particular. And there was backlash about it, and that's something that should be. But this seems just ridiculously extreme to get rid of academic freedom and instead have academic justice.
Again, this is what fascism looks like. I mean, the point of a university of free inquiry is to get to what is true, not to what makes you feel good, not to what's expedient or useful politically in the moment, but to what is absolutely true based on science, the scientific process. That's the whole point.
Right.
And so she's basically not just attacking things that she doesn't like politically, she's attacking the very notion of a liberal education.
Right.
It's scary.
The free flow of ideas. You can have disagreement. You can rally and say that you disagree with it, but then to make sure that a professor is never published again by the university press, this academic research is then squashed.
The whole point of tenure is, right, we have tenure in college. The whole point is professors can say things that are unpopular but are true. And this is a safe place for them to do it. And she's basically saying, and I think a lot of people on the left feel this way.
Let us know what you think about this. Friends at FoxNews.com. Go to our Facebook page as well. FF Weekend over there.